me shift to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. So obviously Joe Burrow is out for the season. He tore his ACL recently in week number 11 of the 2020 NFL season versus the Washington football team. Joe Burrow was having a very good rookie season before he got injured. Through 10 games, his team was 2-7-1. Joe Burrow was completing 65% of his passes, threw for 2,688 yards, 13 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. And as I speak today, I have to say this. Joe Burrow tearing his ACL versus Washington is a wake-up call to the Cincinnati Bengals organization. They need to fix the offensive line in Cincinnati, and they need to do it fast to protect their franchise quarterback of the future, Joe Burrow. Now, before I dive a little bit deeper into this injury as far as what does it mean for the Cincinnati Bengals going forward, I've heard a lot of people criticize the Cincinnati Bengals coaching staff and the Cincinnati Bengals organization after Joe Burrow got injured. They've been saying, how dare the Cincinnati Bengals ruin Joe Burrow's career? How could you put Joe Burrow behind that terrible, piss-poor offensive line? The Bengals have failed Joe Burrow. They don't know how to put any talent around him. And I say to those people, you're wrong. You are flat out wrong. The Cincinnati Bengals have done a very good job of putting good players around Joe Burrow. Have you seen T. Higgins? Have you seen Tyler Boyd? Auden Tate's pretty good. A.J. Green's pretty good. Have you ever heard of Joe Mixon? He's one of the best running backs in all of football. Giovanni Bernard is one of the best backup running backs in the entire NFL. Zach Taylor, he has his flaws. He might get fired by the end of the year, but he's an offensive coach. So Joe Burrow was given an offensive-minded head coach, a top 10 running back, and very good wide receivers entering the NFL. The Bengals also spent the third most money in free agency this past offseason. A lot of people talk about, the Cincinnati Bengals are cheap. They spend no money. And for the most part, for a while, that was true. But this past season, it wasn't true. And people could talk about, what about the offensive line? The offensive line was so bad. And listen, I'm not trying to make this a joke at all. Because, listen, Joe Burrow getting hurt, it's a serious matter. But when we talk about the offensive line, here's the reality, people. If you're a top 10 pick as a quarterback, if you get picked in the top 10 and you're a quarterback entering the NFL and you go to a team that's picking top 10 in the draft, you're probably going to go to a team with a bad offensive line. Welcome to the NFL, people. Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, all of those young quarterbacks that were top 10 to top 15 picks have had to go to bad teams and have had to play behind not very good offensive lines at some point in their career. Okay? Welcome to the NFL, people. That's the reality. Even guys like Aaron Rodgers have gotten hurt over the past couple of years, and the Green Bay Packers have done a good job of protecting Aaron Rodgers for the most part. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes got injured last year. His offensive line is pretty good. In fact, Carson Wentz in 2017 suffered the same injury that Joe Burrow suffered. And his offensive line was one of the 5 best offensive lines in the entire NFL. All I'm trying to say, people, is this. Don't use the offensive line as a scapegoat to bash the Cincinnati Bengals, because you never know what could have happened to Joe Burrow, whether his offensive line was good or bad. Now, does his offensive line being terrible, increase the likelihood that he probably gets injured? Absolutely. Not trying to dispute that 1 second. But this idea that the Cincinnati Bengals have failed Joe Burrow, or that they should have brought in a veteran quarterback to start in front of Joe Burrow, that is dumb. Joe Burrow, in my opinion, at least before I saw Justin Herbert, was arguably the best quarterback in this draft class. And when you're the number one overall pick, and when you have 20 plus college starts, when you win the Heisman Trophy, when you win a national championship, I expect you to come in day number one and be my starting quarterback. So this idea that the Bengals should have brought back Andy Dalton to start over Joe Burrow, stop. Just stop. Maybe we need to admit the fact that Joe Burrow might be a little injury prone, might be a little fragile. I'm not going to put that label on him because he's a rookie right now, but people, stop sounding stupid, okay? Now, the good news for the Cincinnati Bengals is this. Now that Joe Burrow is out due to injury, it pretty much guarantees the fact that you're going to have one of the top 3 picks of the 2021 NFL Draft, okay? Right now, it's pretty obvious that the Jets, the Jaguars, and the Bengals will have the top 3 picks. You know, I think the Jets will probably take a quarterback at number 1 overall, assuming they don't win a game the rest of the way. And I think the Jaguars will more than likely get that number 2 overall pick, and they will probably draft a quarterback to replace Gardner Minshew, who I'm not sure if they're sold on, okay? So what does that mean? That means the Cincinnati Bengals have an opportunity to draft Penei Sewell out of Oregon, a generational talent at left tackle according to most NFL scouts. And this allows Jonah Williams to move to the right side, where I think that he's more comfortable. You know, Jonah Williams was a first-round pick out of Alabama a couple of years ago. He's fine. He's not a bad left tackle, but I think that Jonah Williams would be more suited to be a guard or a right tackle going forward. I think that he would play a lot better at one of those 2 positions. And you can slide Penei Sewell right in at left tackle, and boom, you got 2 really good offensive linemen. Now all you need is another guard or 2, and your offensive line is pretty much fixed. And what is the Cincinnati Bengals' biggest need right now? Offensive line. They need to protect Joe Burrow. They need to give him more time to throw the football because you don't want Joe Burrow running for his life for his entire career. So you get an opportunity to fix the offensive line immediately with that number 3 overall pick, probably drafting Penei Sewell out of Oregon. You know, and honestly, Cincinnati, if you need to spend 2 to 3 or 4 draft picks on offensive linemen to ensure that you shore up the offensive line for Joe Burrow, I go ahead and do it 100% because Joe Burrow, he's the best thing going for your franchise. I mentioned earlier how, you know, the offensive line is not very good for Cincinnati. You don't want that to be the case for his entire career because we saw Andrew Luck, you know, not get protection throughout his career. He was forced to retire, you know, early from the NFL because he was just too tired of getting hit, you know. And the Indianapolis Colts for years and years knew their offensive line wasn't very good, and they pretty much just refused to address the offensive line until Andrew Luck's final year in Indianapolis. When it was too late, he already kind of mailed in his decision. So I don't want the Bengals to be in a situation where it's obvious the offensive line needs fixed, and they just ignore that need. If the Cincinnati Bengals are smart, they will address their offensive line in free agency and in the draft during the offseason. In order to get the most out of Joe Burrow, it is imperative that the Cincinnati Bengals address their offensive line sooner rather than later. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.